Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC. No match reaction, obviously, today, completely different Monday. So we thought, let's talk about this WSL running then, because I think across the whole table, we are obviously going to be focused on the top four, but across the whole table, there's battles this season. Most teams have got four games less, unless you're Chelsea and you want to be special and you've got 6, because they're just... whatever, it is what it is. So we've got obviously a couple of games in hand. Arsenal have obviously got the game in hand as well. But look at the panel that we have assembled for this one. We did try and get a City fan. There's not many of them, let's be real. But the few that we did ask were unavailable tonight. So someone's going to have to speak up for City, which sounds really bizarre saying that on a United channel. Phil, maybe I'll look to you to do that. There we are. You're on mute, by the way, because I did mute you all during the intro. As you can see, Chess is back from, I think, last week. I think you were on.
Yeah, you've allowed me back on, which I'm quite impressed with after my cameo last week. But I'm very, very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
No worries. And Meg, obviously representing Arsenal. It's great to have you back. I can't remember the last show. I always try and remember when people's last shows were. It must have been the team of the season, the team of the year. Sorry, that we did. That went on for a lot longer than it probably could have.
Some very good debates in that one.
It certainly did. And obviously, Rob as well. Welcome back. I think that was your last appearance as well. I think it was that team.
No, mine was Chelsea,
Chelsea
a few weeks ago.
It was when we were discussing the 2 dodgy penalty decisions that weren't given in that one. That was it.
Yeah.
And Phil, welcome back to the channel. Obviously, people will remember you from, obviously, you came on a lot during the Euros talking about our Norwegian girls and obviously talking about Sweden and everything else. I know that you cover those as well. So I hope you're doing well with your instruments in the background. As we were discussing backstage, he's got a guitar, he's got a piano, he's got all sorts. So maybe we'll break out into a little bit of a song if he says United are going to win the league anyway. Chess, I'll come to each of you. We'll just throw it out for a start in terms of how good is this season. The fact that we've got 4 teams going for the potential for the title. Some would argue it's now down to 2. With United and Chelsea, but some still hold the hope that there's still 3, potentially 4 in this. How good is it that the fact that we've got not just top 4 battle, relegation battle as well? There's a few teams down the bottom that could be.
It is awesome. Top 4 battle, bottom 4 relegation battle as well. You can't ask for anything more than that. The championship as well. Obviously, congrats to Bristol City who have now cinched the championship win, but the battle for the championship title was also looking wide open until about February time, which is super impressive. It's great that we have this exciting football happening across the board. I think it was the person who was at the bottom of the WSL table over this weekend. It changed I think it changed 3 times during that game period. And that's awesome that we have that now, because I think in previous seasons, you've kind of known by about January, February time who's kind of hitting the drop. And so teams ease up a bit. They try and do something. They're not really trying anything new because it doesn't really matter as much. So yeah, no, it's awesome that we're really having that. And also that different teams are being able to jump in as well. I think we'll go on to talk later about the fixtures that each team have left. And we were talking just before we were coming on air about Aston Villa and how Arsenal and Manchester United still have to play Aston Villa, and how that's actually going to be a really sticky performance because obviously they've picked up so many points against Manchester City. So yeah, no, it's great. It's really good seeing the league leveling off. Nothing's for certain anymore. And that's a great thing to see.
Yeah, Meg, throw it over to yourself, and obviously Rob and Phil just follow on and afterwards, so I don't have to keep segueing in. But Meg, for yourself, in terms of how good is it that we're seeing this? I think where is it? Lance Hall's put it there. Been a good season for the WSL. I think it will just become better to expand. Obviously, that's a whole other conversation about expansion and things like that. But how good has it been? Obviously, maybe not as an Arsenal fan, but if you take maybe your Arsenal hat off a little bit, how good has the season been so far for you?
No, I mean, it's been absolutely incredible. The fact that there's technically still 4 teams in for the title. Obviously, last season it was Chelsea and Arsenal, and that agonising last day when Man U were beating Chelsea, and I thought we were actually going to win it. But no, it's absolutely incredible, and a massive advocate for women's football as well. I think a lot of people will sort of be like, oh my god, there's still 4 teams that could win this. And as Chess said with Villa, some teams next season will try and push and be as good as the 4 at the top of the table as well. So yeah, it's very exciting and couldn't call it at the minute, really.
I didn't remember, did he?
I only just realised that I could unmute myself there. I thought Connor was doing his God complex thing again. I thought, Chris, I'll just have to wait for him to bring me in. And I think what summed it up for me was watching Manchester City last night. Connor, you've thrown it to me to be the Manchester City correspondent. And I was watching them playing last night. I was watching Chloe Kelly and the absolute decimation that went on in that game. And I was thinking exactly the same thing. There's 4 top teams in there at the moment. We'll get onto who they're playing and how they'll take points or drop points. I think a few years ago, you know, when you watch Chelsea, like maybe 2 seasons ago, you think, okay, they're just going to win all their games and it's going to be really annoying. And the same thing was true maybe of Arsenal teams in the past and that. And you can't really say that this time around. And also previously, you could say that, you know, anybody outside the top 4 was not going to lose, or they weren't going to beat anybody in the top 4. That just didn't happen. There was so few surprises in this league. And I think the most encouraging thing is actually Manchester United. Here's me playing to the gallery, boys and girls. But it's the improvement that Manchester United have made in the space of 1 season goes to show that the gap can be closed very, very quickly. Villa are showing signs of that as well. Liverpool have done very well in their return to the Women's Super League this year. I didn't expect them to be in the position that they're in at the moment, especially after the start they had. Everton, there's potential there. They certainly have the players. Maybe they're not playing up to that potential, but there's so much good in the league right now. Somebody mentioned there, I think, about expansion and that kind of thing. That's something we need to be really careful of. I think that we do to sort of entice more people. I think you do need a Newcastle United. We're going to get Bristol in there. You're going to need more games of that. But you can only really do that when it's competitive. And now I'm thinking that we're starting to get to the point where, yeah, why not have 14 teams? Why not have 16 teams? Because with a few exceptions, maybe at the bottom 2, the bottom 3, it's been very, very competitive all season long.
Yeah, no, I have to echo all the previous points. I will say I think the biggest compliment, I suppose, is the fact you're looking at the table now and there's maybe 1 or 2 sides, and I detest the phrase on the beach, but they're probably at that point now where they're just playing out the rest of the season. They're not going down. They're not staying up. Liverpool, I think, is, you know, one of them. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point before the end of the season, they got a real drubbing somewhere unexpected just by the fact that players are going through the motions. Maybe you might also see it a little bit with Everton, although I think their manager has made it pretty clear he won't settle for situations like the other day where they were pretty dire in the first 30 minutes. Again, the expansion is an interesting topic because what I do think my concern is that even when you're talking about the teams coming up, a lot of the teams that come up tend to struggle and tend to go straight back down. And I think if you're expanding it, you need to be in a situation where you're looking at teams realistically coming up and being able to compete. It's pointless, let's say, bringing up 3 or 4 teams from the Championship if week in, week out, they're just, you know, getting walloped 5 or 6-0 apart from when they play each other. They don't learn anything from that. I will say in general, I also think before you talk about expanding the WSL, you have to look at things like the Conti Cup and sorting that out and making that into a proper competition, because I feel that, you know, I've increasingly been critical of that. And I think over the last few years, the fact that it basically just gets handed between Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester City, and it is, you know, a bit of a sort of dead weight competition now. I'm concerned the FA Cup might also be going that way due to the fact that you are starting to see the same teams consistently getting through, although you can say the same on the men's side. But no, I think it's really good, and I think it's what we needed, because with the TV deal, I think you needed to have this drama and intrigue, and no one really wanted to watch it, you know, an end of the season situation where XYZ had run away with it by 10 points and, you know, a whacking great goal difference, or so-and-so were mired to the bottom and weren't, you know, had no chance of staying up, because it wouldn't be entertaining.
I think that was what we said. You were on the season preview, Rob, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I think that's something we said, because I was worried that Chelsea were going to walk away with it this season. Obviously, if that's not been the case, you still, well, obviously, something we will get to when we talk about predictions, but that was certainly my worry this season. I thought Chelsea are just going to walk this with some of the players you were linked with, the players that you signed, the stack squad you had already. I was like, yeah, this is just over. But here we are, starting mid-April, and it's still pretty close. There's a couple of questions I'd get to very quickly. I do want to try and obviously stay on piece, because I don't want this to run on throughout the whole night, but I will try and get to as many questions as I can. Question for you, Phil, very quickly, if you want to answer this one, if you do know anything, or if you want to elaborate on anything, saying it's to you. So
there's nothing I can say about Stina for the moment. I was down in Gothenburg for the game between Norway and Sweden. It's an obvious game for me to go to because I can meet basically everybody I know in the Women's Super League in one night there. And there was a lovely little scene where herself and Frida Monum were exchanging shirts after the game and having a little bit of a chat and that kind of thing. There's already, I think we're only, to the end of April now, coming towards the end of April now. And just in the last week or so, my phone has been blowing up with questions like this, because this is still the nature of the game. People don't have 5-year contracts in the women's game. And already I'm getting clubs and I'm getting players and I'm getting agents, and I go, oh, what about this player? What about that player? You know, would she like to go there? And even players saying to me, well, I'd like to go here. You know, do you know anybody? You know, this kind of thing. Some players are still representing themselves, mad enough as it is, you know. So at the moment, I don't know. I get the impression that Stina is happier there now than what she was 6 months ago. I think she fits in a lot better. I don't know how that's going to work out now, especially when you consider the injuries that Arsenal have. You know, she's basically undroppable at the moment up front there. She's getting plenty of ball played into her. She seems a really, really good place. She was in a good place against Norway that night as well. But that can change. And, you know, you bring in one player in the same position and then all of a sudden, you know, somebody who's a threat to her, and then all of a sudden she may not want to be there. And then there's always big clubs like Real Madrid and that who are talking about, oh yeah, this year, you know, we're going to start investing in it. But a player like her, I think if she did decide to move on, she's going to have her pick of clubs, but a lot of places will be a step down. She has to go to a Champions League club, and a lot will be to do with, okay, this year's the World Cup. I don't think she's going to worry too much about where she's playing in August until the World Cup is out of the way. So I do think, as I say, at the moment, I think she's very, very happy at Arsenal, but you never know. That could change depending on who they bring in and what they decide to do for next season.
Can I just, on a general point from that, can I just say it's really good to hear, because you could tell from the player, I think she did an interview back in January, end of January, beginning of February, where she said it herself, she wasn't enjoying the football. Like, just from a, you know, taking rivalry aside from it, it's good to hear a player actually back and enjoying themselves again, because you could tell for a long period of time, and I said this, I think during that FA Cup game at Chelsea, that Blackstenius was doing all of the right things as a player. It's just none of it was coming off. And as a striker, I said, you know, I said it that week, you know, she'll keep doing that and she'll keep doing it, and one of the weeks it'll start falling for her. Sod's Law did dictate, it happened to be a week later in the Conti Cup final, that it would, you know, the turnaround would happen. But it is one of those things, especially I think with a striker, it's such a lonely position when you're not scoring, even when you're playing well. And it's good to hear, you know, from a mental point of view, because you could see it was weighing on her. And I think, you know, whatever happened in the January window, whether she was or wasn't included in negotiations, whether she was or wasn't being used as a make weight, it clearly did affect her. And I think people do at times forget these players are, you know, human beings. They're not necessarily things to be, you know, they're not trading cards to be bought and collected and just, you know, used and swapped however people see fit.
No, 100% agree with that. But I think there's going to be a lot of these rumours floating around, certainly as we get towards, obviously, because a lot of clubs will like to get some deals done before the World Cup, as Phil mentioned there. Bringing it back to, obviously, the WSL Lansdale, I do see a question, another one for Phil. I'll come back to that in after we've just done this little short segment. Chess, I'll come to you from a United point of view. I'm going to ask each of you this from a club point of view. Again, obviously difficult, we don't have a City rep, but what would be a success and on a flip side / failure from a United point of view, from this position that we're in, obviously currently top of the league, obviously Chelsea with the 2 in hand, what would you class as a success and obviously on the flip side a failure from where we are?
It's really difficult because it's very different to what I think we would have said at the start of the season. Failure, obviously, 4th place. It's a 4th place finish. And that's very stark to say, I think, but that would have been seen as, but anything above or anything that isn't a 4th place finish would have been seen as a massive win. And all of the look at all the progress that we've made at the start of the season, for example. Exactly, failure without a doubt will be coming 4th again. Getting Champions League football. But obviously now look at the position we're in. We've been top of the league consistently, in and out for a long time now. Made it into the FA Cup final. I think United realistically are looking, if they drop out of top 2, I think that'll be a real disappointment in the league. And I don't even necessarily say that we could win. I'm not saying that not winning the FA Cup would be a disappointment, but I think if they don't turn up on the day of the FA Cup and play very well and maybe take it right to the end, right to the 90, they just sit back and get smashed, that would be very disappointing as well. So I'm not even necessarily saying winning the FA Cup, but I'm saying getting top 2 and playing well in the FA Cup final would be my good this season.
I think that's pretty fair. There's a lot of comments, I think, agreeing with you on that one. Lansdale's been saying this for a while from this position. I think from, if I remember correctly, Lansdale from January, February time, he's been saying top 2 should from here. I mean, well, it's in our hands to finish second, so it should be. Megan, from an Arsenal point of view, what's a successful season now for obviously still in the Champions League, potentially turn that tie around in the late stages there, top 3 obviously. But what would you deem as a good season from here?
I mean, at the start of the season when we had, every player available, I would have looked at a success being, possibly winning the league or, just having one piece of silverware. And to be fair, we've got that with the Conti Cup. Obviously, we lost to Chelsea in the FA Cup in the game before, and then we went on to beat them in the Conti Cup final, which, I don't think many of us expected, but I think that's a massive success considering what we've been through this season. I want to say that not getting Champions League will be a failure. I think it will be very close between us and City for that 3rd place. But obviously with the injuries, that we've had, I think a success is getting to the end of the season with no more injuries probably at this point in time. But no, I think success at the start of the season was a piece of silverware, and we have got that. So yeah, I'll be happy whatever happens from then on. Whether we go on to make the Champions League final, that will just be kind of an added bonus.
Sorry to jump in, but see, Megan, you've got to win the Champions League and then you automatically get Champions League again. So then you can come 4th and then all of us can get Champions League. And then we don't have to worry about it anyway. See, everyone can be a winner. You just
that
need to
would
be
be brilliant.
And then maybe Barcelona.
We'll see.
Big trouble. But exactly. So, but yeah. See, you could do it for all of us. It could be so good.
We'll try our best. Yeah.
Rob, I'll throw it over to yourself because weirdly, Chelsea could end this season trophyless.
They could. Although I'm happy, I'll put it quite easily down. They won't. I think, to be honest, from here they will go on and win the WSL. They will just grind out results. It'll probably be quite boring.
Just very quickly, if you just win the WSL,
no. I'm gonna continue. I was gonna say I think we'll win the FA Cup as well. Because I think we'll just go to Wembley, and Sam Kerr will do what she does at Wembley, which is just makes herself the star attraction again. There's also the fact that it's going to be probably Pernilla Harder's last game, so she'll decide to score bicycle kick from inside her own half against you, something like that. She's got to continue her wonder goal form. It's a weird one. Again, I mean, for me, the real success Chelsea, the rest of it, and it will sound odd, is going and giving a really good performance on Thursday at Barcelona, because the way Chelsea played against Barcelona, especially in the first half, they did cause problems to them, and they were unlucky to not go in level. In the second half, it was kind of weird in that Barcelona almost went into damage limitation mode is the wrong word, but they went into a control mode, and they weren't interested in really extending the scoreline, but they were interested in just making sure Chelsea didn't have a chance. Now, to me, that's a great credit to Chelsea in the way they approached it, and also shows great maturity. But also the other problem is the fact that Chelsea ultimately are going to need to go there and score. Now, I want to just see a really good performance because I've said this before and I've said it multiple times. There's no shame in losing to Barcelona, in the same way there will be absolutely no shame to either Wolfsburg or Arsenal, whoever goes out in that tie, because they're going to go out to an elite side. And to win the Champions League, you need to beat 2 or 3 elite teams. What I am quite confident to say is I do think I've probably watched the winner of the Champions League in that Chelsea-Barcelona tie, because I think both Wolfsburg and Arsenal have things that both of them will ultimately lead to the other teams taking advantage of. Arsenal, just the fact that they are decimated by injuries. Wolfsburg, the fact that they leave ridiculous amounts of space in behind. I mean, it's like a basketball match at times. But I think, Chelsea success has to be a couple of trophies. I think they will get it. To be honest, I just think it's one of those situations where Chelsea they're nowadays, we're disappointed if we don't win 3 or 4, 3 trophies and have a good crack at the 4th. If we go out to Barcelona and they ultimately go on and win it, you say you've gone out to the winner. The Conti Cup final didn't turn up on the day, didn't deserve to win it. I don't want to see my team win silverware if they don't turn up on the day. I actually think it was quite a good wake-up call, that game for Chelsea, because they were starting to get into that mode where they coast a little bit like last year against City, and from that point on, they didn't drop points. I think Chelsea will be very happy a lot of the fixtures still at Kings Meadow as well. I think the fact that a lot of them are at home still, they can get a good crowd in, get it roaring. Fixtures like Everton, for example, at home, Liverpool at home, they'd be tough potential banana skins away from home, but at home, I think it just makes it that bit easier. And I do think Chelsea still will drop points at some point in the run-in, but I think everyone will drop points somewhere, because I don't think any team's going to go all the way unbeaten.
No, that's a fair point. As we've been pushing this for, and Phil will also know from a group chat that we are in that we started our own little fan club. So we've been pushing this agenda most of the season. I don't think it's going to happen though. Well,
you're right to Manchester United.
A girl can dream.
As you said many times, Connor, you can but dream. You know.
I think you may have stand a good chance on EA Sports. You know, next game, you may be able to make it happen on there. But I don't think.
But not in real life. No, Guro is somebody that I got to know reasonably well in the World Cup at the World Cup in 2019 and last year at the Euros, and she's very, very happy at Chelsea. And she is now mentally, I'd say, she's back where she was when she left LSK in Norway to go to Chelsea, right? So Guro was back then. She was the most dangerous player in Norwegian football. She scored a phenomenal amount of goals. I think she might have been top scorer in the top series there for 2 seasons in a row. She's just incredible. But now, and they won everything around them. They were by far the best team in Norway. And I think Frida Monum has come from there. Ingrid Sustengen from Barcelona came from there. There was just loads of brilliant players there. And Guro had a little bit of a reset when she came to England and had to settle in. You know, I remember her telling me about Millie Bright cleaned her out the first day on training and sort of looked down and went, "Welcome to England." And Guro went, "Okay, I really have to raise my game now." And she has. And she has become tougher, and she's become smarter, and she's become funnier, and she's become better. And she's rediscovered, because the one thing about that kid is, you know, she's a walking meme, right? Everything she does is fucking hilarious, but she's an incredible winner, right? There is a deep, deep desire within her to win. She's not one of those players who looks around and goes, "Okay, well, Juventus have offered me a vast amount of money. I'm going to go there and I'll have a nice life." No. She wanted to go to the best club in England, and she wants to win things week in and week out with the best club in England. Never talk to her after a defeat, right? There's no point, right? She's just so bad-tempered. Forget about it. But when she wins, she's in great form altogether. And that's what Chelsea have in their favour coming into this point of the season. But if we look back at what Connor was saying there, what would represent success for different teams, as the appointed Manchester City correspondent here this evening, I would have to say it would be finishing above Manchester United, because at the moment what we got is what we would have expected, except in reverse. We would have expected at the start of the season that Manchester City might have led the league for a good bit of the season, maybe gunning for second, that kind of thing. But they started so slowly that, you know, we were all caught out by it, and they were caught out by it themselves. So I think at this stage now, I mean, they're into second place now. They're still in there with a shout. God knows how it's going to go in terms of the games they have left. But I think that would be their big thing is, okay, if we're not going to win the league, we can't come behind United. But the problem is that, you know, the chance that maybe they had to leapfrog United might have happened in the early weeks and months of the season. I think City will be quite disappointed. There'll be a little bit of a bonus if Bunny Shaw is the top scorer in the league. She's been fantastic. Chloe Kelly's been fantastic. You know, they've had some brilliant players and brilliant individual performances. But I reckon they'll be disappointed if they don't finish, you know, second or at least above United this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of in their hands, isn't it? City, obviously, if they beat us, they'll go level points, but their goal difference is a lot. Well, it's quite far behind ours, so I can't see them closing.
Connor,
that.
if you don't stop going on about a guru writing, you know we're never beating those midfield United allegations. Like never. Like, come on. Leave it be. Another position, please.
I mean, I can say for a fact, like the amount of conversations I had with Connor about Chelsea, and 90% of them have been about Guro. The funniest one, I think, actually, was last year on the day of the final, when I said to you, you know, there's like after you picked her up, there's guaranteed that she's going to be the one that scores the goal that wins the title now. And I'm fairly sure I just said "told you," just the response as soon as it happened. But no, what I think is interesting, and again, that I saw it yesterday with City. City is such a strange team to watch from a, say, semi-neutral point of view, in that there are some games they watch and they look so controlled. Like the first half against Arsenal, they were so brilliant. They controlled the game. They should have been out of sight in the match. And then there are games like the second half against Arsenal, or the entire game yesterday against West Ham, where even though they won 6-2, at no point during that game can you tell me, maybe until the final 10 minutes, the City looked comfortable. Like they looked like they were playing a hot potato. I thought they attacked really, really well, but the midfield was basically non-existent. And from a goalkeeping perspective, I thought Keating did really well to step in, but she made a number of really good saves, particularly one, I think, from Lisa Evans and one from Brynjarsdottir, that those two stops at key moments that could have led to West Ham getting back into it. And I do feel against maybe a more well-drilled opponent, they won't necessarily get the 2-goal early buffer they might end up dropping, silly points. I could see that being the sort of, I think they play Reading this weekend. I see that being the sort of game where, as good as City are, and we almost saw it against Brighton early in the season, as good as they are, I could just see that being the sort of silly game where they drop the points.
But I think that's why they are where they are, Rob, because, they get the goals and that kind of thing, but they don't look in any way coherent, until Chloe Kelly gets on the ball. Philip Angeldal, I don't know, I rate her. She's a really, really good player, but they haven't really looked as settled. The way you can almost predict what Arsenal are going to do when Frida Monum gets on the ball or when they get the ball to back. You can just see what pattern is going to emerge. The same thing with Chelsea. You'd recognize them. If you took the numbers and the colours off the shirts, you'd still recognize them by the way they play. And I can't really say that about City this year at all, unless Kelly gets on the ball on the right-hand side. And then you kind of know what's going to happen from there. And that's not a good thing. It's always better to have something that's a recognizable, okay, this is how we play football. I'm a big fan of giving players license to play. Once they get over the halfway line, just don't give the ball away in our own half, but then go play, be creative. But they don't seem to know how to play with one another. Kelly was brilliant in terms of finding Khadija Shaw all season long. But when you see how good Wrighton crosses the ball, Connor's going to love this, like at all for Sam Kerr, that sort of telepathic thing that goes on. The certain thing that happened in the same way, as I mentioned, with Frida Monum's passing and the way Katie McCabe plays football for Arsenal, and that kind of thing is to be welcomed, because that this is drilled. They know where each other wants the ball. But, City kind of played all season like they only met in the dressing room before the game. And that really is what has had them struggling all year. And that's why you can't say, I think of all the clubs that are represented in the top four at the moment, City are the ones that I expect least to emerge as winners of the Women's Super League this year.
Oh, that's a shout, considering they're... to be fair, Arsenal do have a game in hand over them, to be fair. We're going to get to that in just a second. Phil, I'll get this question for you before we move on to our little table predictor, which is... we'll obviously decide the outcome of... predicted outcome from our lovely panelists here. But I knew as soon as I said, Phil, that you were coming on that this question was going to arise. Two people asked it earlier on. Vilda and Maria. Go on, talk to us about those two. About next season. There's a lot of talk. Vilda obviously hasn't played as much this season. She's played really well, to be fair, when she has played this season. But then following game, we don't see her for whatever reason. What do you? Maria and Vilda in that question. Do you expect them both to be here next season, or how do you see those two?
I hate to break it to you, Connor, but I think that the Norwegian period may be over. You can cancel Vikings on HBO, whatever channel you're watching at the moment. I think that experiment might be done and dusted. I just think that, for some reason, and I've said this to you off air many, many times, I don't think that they have got the chance that they needed at Manchester United. I've spoken before about Maria and Maria's qualities as a footballer. I think that she could have done a brilliant job as a defensive midfielder. She's played there for a few minutes for United only. She's a great centre back. I know that she had a very difficult time, very torrid time against England in the Euros last year. And I really felt sorry for her because, for tactical reasons, she was left completely exposed there. Now she has a serious injury to deal with. It's after the concussion that she suffered at Chelsea. This is like, I haven't spoken to her now, and she wasn't obviously with the national team the last time I was down there with them. So I don't know what our plans are. It wouldn't surprise me. Brann in Bergen are spending a lot of money. They're bringing back a lot of Norwegian internationals. I think Andrine Hegerberg, all the sisters, gone back there to play for them as well. There's a good setup at the top teams in the top series in Norway at the moment. It wouldn't surprise me. She loves her dad. Her dad's a brilliant handball coach. She loves the sport of handball. It wouldn't surprise me after all the time that she's been in England that she might pack herself and Theo into the car, as she's done many times driving home from England after the season. But maybe this time she doesn't return. Do I think she should return? Absolutely. I think that woman is a leader. She's an extremely good player. She's the kind of person that helps you to set a culture in a locker room, right? And that is very, very important, because that's where Chelsea stand out, and that's where Arsenal stand out, and that's where Barcelona stand out. They have adults in the room to look after the younger players, like the Guro Reitens coming in, and that's what makes them so valuable in that context. Now, the other thing is, we're seeing the Erling's comment there. The Erling's a Norwegian name, so I'm guessing that the Erling is from Norway. It does sound like she plans to stay at United. The problem there is that it's not always the player's choice. And when you go to look at the budget now, when Skinner sits down with the people at the club and sits down, to work out, okay, what have we got to spend the money on? it may be that Maria just falls outside of that, because maybe her age profile isn't right, or because she's played so little in the last few years. And of course, now we have this injury. When it comes to Vilde, I think that this is just, I will never understand that. I'm going to have to go over there and sort of tie someone to a chair at Manchester United and get them to explain to me how they didn't get the best out of one of the best passing midfielders in Europe. And again, when she played against Sweden, I was watching her in the centre of the field there, and I was going, I just don't get it. Now I know that United's midfield is stacked with talent and that kind of thing, but there's so many different places that she could play, from a number 10 role to a defensive midfielder, a sort of a quarterback in there, and to not turn her into a rotation player, like a meaningful rotation player. I don't think Manchester United managed to do that, and I don't see that as being her fault, because she's as good now, if not better, than she ever was, and I've been watching her for years. I've seen her play here for Copa Bay and for Häcken in Gothenburg, and just an amazing player, the kind of player who can turn any sort of a game, and the kind of player who brought Norway back into it when they were under the cosh against Sweden. I would kind of expect to see her back at Häcken. I know that she enjoyed her time in Gothenburg. She's very, very well liked down there. The people at that club, they would crawl over broken glass to get her back to that club. And I do think that, if Manchester United can hold on to her, I think they owe it to her to invest in her and to give her that opportunity. And do you know what? If she's not good enough, and I believe she is, that's fine. But give her the chance once and for all. Don't waste another year of the girl's career. Put her in there and let her deliver, because I know that she can.
I see. People are going to love that. There's going to be clips of that floating around of you.
I was about to say, I'm going to, now I know. I don't think I've ever been on this channel without a bloody VBR debate.
Yeah, it's certainly one that's rumbled on all season. I mean, yeah, you make good. Well, as people know, I've been a lot of us have been caught, especially how well she played, and then the next game we don't see her. It doesn't make sense. I think she's the one player out of the whole squad that has a shout. Yeah, I don't get it. It'll be a shame if she leaves. Same with Maria, but ultimately, we are where we are in the league in an FA Cup final without these players, some would argue. So there's obviously two sides. But as you said, Phil, if I'm her, I'm not sitting there. And if I'm not promised, at least something next season, I'm gone.
Actually, now that you mention it, Connor, with the World Cup coming up, right? Hege Riise has told the squad, you need to be playing at a high level, otherwise I'm not bringing you, right? Julie Blackstad from across town, she came back to Häcken there. And I was talking to her there a couple of weeks ago when I was at that game, and I was saying, you must be delighted to get here. And she was saying, yeah, it's going to be great to get some games, because she knows that her chances of playing in the World Cup, they hinge on getting games. Vilde was left out initially, I think, out of Hege's first squad because she wasn't playing for United. And then she was brought in, I think, when somebody got injured, right? Now, it was a little bit different when she got into the camp and she was able to show Hege. Hege knows what she can do anyway, but she was able to see her in the dressing room in that environment to realize what an important piece she is. But there's only so many players you can bring. The Norwegian season has started. The girls are getting going there. There's some good players in there. You have good players at Bayern Munich. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of competition there as well. And if it was to be the case that she misses this World Cup because of the fact that she hasn't got playing time in Manchester United, I don't think it's going to be very easy for her to forgive that, because her career path really until she got to United has been very clear. It's been a step forward the whole time. And, you only get so many chances, especially in the women's game. You only get so many chances to go to these big tournaments as a central midfielder. And I really would hope that she makes it for her own sake, because, as I said, I think she deserves it. But again, and I don't want to be too critical of the club now. I'm not in the dressing room. I don't see training every day, so I don't know what the decisions are based on. I only know what I see when I've seen her with the national team, when I see her play on TV. But I do think as well that, especially with Julie Blackstad that I just mentioned there, fantastic left-footed winger, tremendous player, again, left very exposed, playing left back against England. So maybe people in England don't have like a great rating of her. She doesn't play much for City, but a fantastic player. And we always have, as clubs, a responsibility to players to let them perform in the best light. And if we can't do that, we kind of have to let them move on, however hard that might be.
Yep, no, couldn't have summed that up any better than what you did there. Obviously, there's a lot of love for Vilde and for Maria, and obviously now for Lisa as well, who has joined our kind of Norwegian trio that we've got going on there as well. So fingers crossed, we'll see her anyway. To be fair, Vilde is a cup player this season, so maybe in the cup final. I doubt it, but maybe. We can look ahead. Speaking of looking ahead, right, let's get to these fixtures then, because we've got quite a few to get through for each team. Obviously, I'm going to ask the panel who obviously we'll go through team by team. Obviously, we'll start with Chelsea because they've got the most games. See who the panel think are going to drop points, and obviously my mental math is going to be fully tested now because I'm going to do this on the spot while everyone's telling me their results and add it all up, and we'll see what the panel think the table is going to finish up as towards the end of the season. So we'll start with Chelsea then. So for people who don't know, Chelsea's remaining fixtures, as Rob said, quite a few home ties in there. So the next three, I believe, Liverpool, Everton, Leicester, all at home. They've got West Ham away in there. Tricky game, potential banana skin there. The Arsenal game at home, and then Reading away. So 6 points, 6 games, 18 points, obviously, is the max. Is everyone, well, I'll come to you first, Rob. Is that 6 wins for you, or are you?
I think it'll be 16 points.
16.
I think most likely either dropping points away at West Ham or home to Arsenal. Like the Arsenal game, it kind of depends because of the nature of when it falls in it. If they've got a Champions League final and potentially they themselves already know that they can't finish in third, which I know is technically a mathematical possibility by that point, I think they would probably swallow their pride on the basis they'd rather give a one-off tie a bloody good go than, and take the medicine of losing to Chelsea. They've done it enough before. Than really going all guns blazing, and also just due to the squad size at the moment. Like from one thing I will give you Enzadebel very much credit for. He's a shrewd guy in terms of that he understands not to needlessly overload players and not to needlessly play players when they don't need to play. You saw it yesterday with the game where he brought Catley off when she clearly was running on fumes by that point and had been playing very, very well. It wasn't any slight on her performance, but it was just a fact that they were protecting her from injury, and they said, she's coming back from injury. The same with Ford and Hurtig. I understand at least one of them could have technically gone to Germany and featured, but they wanted to try and protect them because there's no point getting another longer-term sort of, injury. And the other games, I just think Chelsea will, it's the sort of games I could just see them grinding out results. I think Liverpool will be the one where potentially at home, like Liverpool, that is the one I think maybe they're in danger of getting a drubbing, because I think Chelsea will not forget what happened at the beginning of the season. They don't tend to take, that Chelsea tend to lose their opening game of the WSL season. It becomes a bit of a running joke as Chelsea fans that you get nervous when we start the season well rather than when we finish it well. But I get the feeling that that's the sort of game Emma will just, even if it, especially as it comes after, the fixture against Barcelona, which potentially might be a difficult night. You never like playing this Chelsea side after they suffer a loss. It's never a fun game for any opponent, and teams, in general learn that lesson often, that playing Chelsea after they lose a game or have, lost an important tie or whatever, hell hath no fury like Emma Hayes scorned, is the sort of the phrase I use for it. And I think, it's hard for me to see where they drop points. Again, I'll probably sound quite biased in that regard, but I also would point to the fact that I've got the confidence and the experience in it. Pernilla Harder, as someone mentions there, the return from injury, I think that's a big thing for the run-in. She's the sort of player that can kick on. Obviously, a lot of talk's been said about Beth Mead and Miedemar being out for the season, and I completely agree that that's been a massive factor. But at Chelsea, the thing people have forgotten is they've lost Kirby and Harder. And I think, Kirby, especially for her link-up with Sam Kerr, and this is where I think Guro Reiten been so impressive this year. Like, Reiten has stepped up into that creative void that's been lost by Kirby and stepped up into the goal-scoring void from Harder. Now, I still don't necessarily think, for whatever reason, we've seen the best of Pernilla Harder at Chelsea. I think we've seen it in flashes, but for whatever reason, we haven't seen it consistently. That's not to slight her ability. Like, I think whatever move she makes to the next team, she'll go on and be perfect. And the big thing I would say about Harder is she does have the ability to step up in big moments, which is something that's always so valuable. And I think that'll be important. But I do think, Chelsea have quietly gone under the radar in regards to the fact that they have had these long-term injuries. Svitkova also being out for a significant amount of time, and she's a very good option for balance in the midfield. Obviously, Bright and Buchanan, neither of them have been fully fit since about, January between them. And Chelsea have quietly made things tick over. I think it was really good to see in the last few weeks Mara Mielda come back into the mix. I mean, again, I have a bias here. Mara Mielda is unequivocally my favourite Chelsea player. I've said this multiple times. Like, if you had a squad of Mara Mieldas, you'd have one of the best teams in the league just by attitude. Her consistency, her ability to step up in big moments. Again, when it was that penalty against Lyon, it's probably the most least nervous I've ever been for a penalty. Nervous due to the nature of it, but then I just saw it was Mara Mielda stepping up, and I thought, she's going to bury this just by the nature of the player. And I think because Chelsea have that nous just to get things done, I think they'll just go into get things done mode. It won't necessarily be flashy football. I don't think it has been for a lot of the season, but I just think they'll get things done.
Meg, I'll throw it to yourself because obviously you're the representative that's still got to play Chelsea in this run. How many points are you thinking Chelsea are gonna pick up in this 6 games?
Exactly the same as Rob. I'm going for 16, and I think the draw will hopefully be against Arsenal. I think obviously we were very unlucky for it to be a draw at the Emirates. Obviously we were 1-0 for so long and then had to concede to Sam Kerr. But yeah, hate conceding to Sam Kerr. I'm sure anyone does. But yeah, I just think they have been, as sort of Rob said, kind of gone under the radar a bit, I guess, this season because everyone's kind of expected them to do what they'll do kind of thing. But yeah, I think there will be a couple of drubbings in there probably from them. But hopefully, you know, despite all our injuries, I think we've sort of adapted to a different mentality this season with the amount of injuries we've had, you know, especially like the Wolfsburg game, you know, beating City 2-1, that screamer from Katie McCabe, like just moments this season that, you know, I didn't think we'd, you know, get points at certain times, but we have. So, yeah, I think that'll be where Chelsea drop the points.
So, Chess, we've got 2 shouts for 16. How many are you going out of 18 for Chelsea?
I'm going to be very boring, and I'm also going to say 16. When I looked it up before, I'm going to also kind of spoil my other results. I don't actually think any of the top 4 are going to drop any points outside of the obviously games where they're playing themselves. I think they're going to be the most important ones. The most important ones there. A draw would be the best for United because it would mean that they could actually make something of the season. In the sense of actually winning the title. Whether that will be what comes to fruition when Chelsea and Arsenal play each other, I think it's massively dependent on what the teams are looking like off the back of the Champions League and the amount of when's the fixture again? Sorry, can someone shout me?
Second last game of the season, isn't it? So
second last.
Is.
Rob, have you got? Do you know when the last? Do you know when it is?
I want to say it's the 20th.
It's down as the 21st. Yeah, 21st. It's a week after the cup final.
Week after the cup final. Okay, yeah. So we'll see the freshness of the team, and then again, also I think it will massively impact whether United make something of the FA Cup final as well. Because if they do, as we were saying before, no one enjoys playing against Emma Hayes' squad after they've just lost, and so realistically, I think if I would say that it would be another draw just because the sheer amount of game time and the injuries that these players are having to play. But if Manchester United wins the FA Cup final, I think Chelsea will probably go on to win the game against Arsenal and pick up all of the points. But I'm going to be very diplomatic and say 16.
It's worth noting, like I said, Chelsea got that cup final, then 3 days later it's the away at West Ham, and then it's obviously the Arsenal game the following weekend. So that's a huge 7 days.
Very, very tight.
Well, that decides from whether Chelsea, for me, pick up silverware this season, those kind of 7 days, which kind of spoils my... So at the moment, I've also gone 16. Phil, are you going to make this a full house and give Chelsea 16 points and therefore the title?
I absolutely refuse point blank to take part in this fiasco of Chelsea getting 16 points. What does that matter with you people? Right? I think somewhere between 14 and 15 is about right because... there's 2 things, right? Much and all, is I have to echo what Rob says. Maren Mjelde is not just one of the best players I've ever seen. She's just one of the best people I've ever seen in football. And I was saying to her after when Sweden drew with Norway, they drew 3-3 a few weeks ago. And I was saying to her, you know, you would have enjoyed a penalty shootout to finish that one, wouldn't you? And she was going, yep, I'll do it again. You know, she just has a great character, great winner. But that said, you have herself and Magda Eriksson who are there. Now, at the moment, Maren is fully fit, which is something that she hasn't been for years. You know, she's had a very serious knee injury, but she's now back to herself. I just think, though, that there are some teams are so physical now in the WSL, and you're going to be asking her to play an awful lot of minutes between now and the end of the season. And she and Magda absolutely have to be perfect from now until the end of the season if Chelsea are going to win all their games. And I don't see that happening. Not just because, again, it's not the thing of those 2 on their own. I do think that they're going to be left exposed by the players that are around them at some point as well. And that's going to make it a little bit difficult. I would say Liverpool, for some reason, I think have another big performance in them. It wouldn't surprise me if they were to come down to London and take points off them again. And I also think that Arsenal will either get a draw or beat them. So this is the thing that that might be Arsenal's season there. That might be the only thing they get out of this if they don't make it to the Champions League final. And like, I don't mean that. I don't mean to be offensive in saying that, but it's just one of those things that it would be so disappointing for Arsenal to just hand Chelsea the title and just roll over like Theo the dog and just hand it to Chelsea. I don't think they're going to do that, So I do think this has been a season where, as we were saying in the very beginning, this is not like it was a couple of years ago where the top 4 are going to be the bottom 8 10 times out of 10. You just never see an upset. I do think that there's one big upset in there. I do think that there's one big Arsenal performance left in there. And I do think that it's going to be Chelsea who end up, it's going to end up costing them maybe somewhere along the line is where I feel.
I like
what I will say in terms of physicality thing, what I do think at some point you'll see in the run into the end of the season, I think Chelsea will put Ingle into centre-back. And we'll play Ingle in that centre-back position as the physical option against a team. I could see it like West Ham, for example, against Asayi, and maybe playing Ingle and one of Ericsson or Mielda. I could also maybe see them dropping to the 3 and using the 3 with Carter in there, because I think that's been, and again, I was on here quite a few weeks ago, backing my shout for Jess Carter in the combined 11, and then she went ahead to have, one of the best games she had all season. But I think that's the thing that with Chelsea, and also we never really exactly know when one of Buchanan or Bright are going to come back. Like, it's the sort of stupid thing with Chelsea. It could just be randomly Thursday, Buchanan could suddenly appear on the team sheet again, even though she's been in that protected boot, because no one quite knows what's wrong with them. The same with Millie Bright. Like, I mean, having talked to Millie Bright before, she will be, as soon as they say the all clear, she will be straight out there, whether, she's trained for 1 day, 1 hour, 10 minutes, she will want to throw herself back out there because she hates being injured.
No, that's certainly going to play a big factor in that. So obviously, 4 of us have gone for 16, Phil with the 15. So this is going to make it the United 4 fixtures interesting from Phil's point of view, because that could hand United the title with just the Chelsea 15 points there. Obviously, hello to John. People will know, obviously, he's changed his YouTube channel now, the Glass Girls Network. On that, actually, congrats to Stourbridge. Obviously, people, if you follow my Twitter, obviously won tier 4. So they're now promoted to tier 3, which you all have seen. The Glass Girls Network is the fan channel for all things Stourbridge women as well. So go and subscribe and watch that, because it is a well-run channel by the previous boss of this channel, if you haven't already. And Phil's noticed that name that he's called me as well. I'm not saying that.
Con dog.
No. Nobody calls me that anymore. There we are. Chess, move it on to United then. We've obviously got the 4 games left. The next couple obviously pretty tricky and probably season defining, if you want to call it that. So from a United point of view, most United fans will know, obviously, we've got the Villa away game, Spurs at home, City at home, and Liverpool away. So 12 points to get. How many are you putting towards United?
Villa away will be difficult. I think United have an advantage in that fixture in the sense that Kirsty Hansen can't play, because obviously she is United tied because she's on loan. I think that's going to be really beneficial for them, if I'm honest. Although I did watch it. What was it, 0-0 at the end of last season? And that was when we kind of actually threw the title down the bin after drawing to West Ham as well. And then it was Aston Villa that we played, and it was just a very awful game. That I sat through the 90 minutes of last season, away at the Bescot Poundland Arena, the best stadium in the WSL. But yeah, I think the Aston Villa game will be difficult. I hope. I've seen Ellie pop up in the comments saying how amazing Rachel Williams is. I'm expecting Rachel Williams winner, exactly, from that fixture, as she should. Every doubter, I hope you enjoy biting your tongue, but no, I think realistically I will want to say that United will pick up results, like a win from every single match for the rest of the season. Realistically, we may draw with Manchester City. Obviously, if we do so, that kind of puts it in Chelsea's hands again, but I'm gonna screw it, whatever. We're winning the league. We're going to win all the rest of the games of the season. I don't care anymore. It's fine. Throw the integrity out the window. It's great. We'll see. Or we'll be winning the league and then we lose to Liverpool at the end of the season, and then we can hold each other's hands and cry about it in the Wirral, and then we can go and do it all again next season, because this is why we love the sport. It's very sadistic, but yeah.
Well, your tale was very interesting. Yeah, 12. So that's That's going to be tight. That will go down to goal difference on your little table on that one.
Oh
Meg,
yeah, so this is also another thing. United are massively lucky at the moment because we've got 10 more goals on goal difference than Chelsea. So if it's level, I don't really care about that because obviously we're massively ahead. And this also goes for both Arsenal and Manchester City as well. So United does benefit from that when you're trying to get into like the top 3 spaces anyway. So yeah, it's just a positive, but still.
Wow, I'll be intrigued to see. Maybe we do need a goal difference factor in it. We'll come back to that. Once we've worked out who thinks was going to finish where. Meg, how many points do you think United are getting? Like I said the 4 fixtures: Villa away, Spurs, City at home, and Liverpool away. How many out of 12 do you think United are getting there?
I'm going 10, and I think it will either be a draw to City, or I know Chess has just said you're very confident about Villa, but I think Villa could spring a surprise on United, especially as it's away. Obviously, you said Kirsty Hansen won't be playing, which will be a massive miss for Villa. But I just see Villa kind of producing one of those outstanding games like they have, quite a few times this season. And if so, then I can see United getting the win over. I just think they've got that sort of a handover.
Sorry, Rob, I just had to mute you because that really hurt my ears, whatever that noise was. Did anyone else hear that, or was that just me?
Yeah.
No, I think
I've got
Rob
no idea what it was.
I've got no idea, but that was not a nice sound that just came through my headphones. That's for sure. So just to confirm, next, obviously this will impact the City points tally as well. Are you going a Villa draw, a United to draw to Villa but beat City, or are you going?
Yes,
United to
that I'll go for a draw against Villa and a win against City.
Right, so let's swap this around. While Rob's sorting his mic out, I'm color coding my sheet. Rob, are you still with us? Are you?
I think so.
The stream just really didn't like Megan saying that we were going to drop points to Villa, and so Rob's mic was like, "No, we can't hear this," and so muted it for her.
It was Carla Ward.
She's listening. She's listening. She's playing 4D chess. She steps ahead. She steps ahead.
Rob, how many points are you giving United?
Honestly, it's weird because I look at the fixtures. It's the sort of thing I can feasibly write a scenario where you take all 12 of them. I can also equally feasibly write a scenario where you take 7. And it's like one of those situations where I'm looking at these games and all of them have merits on paper, but then all of them have things that are mitigating factors. I mean, take Spurs, for example. Spurs, if they play like they did in the first half of the weekend, you'll beat them easily. If they play like they did in the second half, then they'll give you a really good game. There's also the fact that Beth England will be aware that you're in a title race. It's well known that she does bleed blue, and she will want to do us a favour again because she's just a terrific human being. That said, Villa, it depends which Villa turn up. If it's the same one we played on the Sunday night in the WSL, you'll win easily. If it's the same one we played in the FA Cup semi-final, again, I can see them springing a surprise. I think Daly will be really keen on getting that golden boot wrapped up because Bunny Shaw is continuing to score as well. And I think Daly will be keen on keeping that race up. I also do think that, you've got people at Villa like Hampton, for example. She's coming to the end of her contract and, a big performance against Manchester United is the sort of thing that if you're a player looking for, contract opportunities to come through, a good performance against the top 4 opponent is certainly not the worst thing to do. City, it's a derby. I hate predicting derbies. They could be anything. It could be a cagey 0-0. It could end 4-4. And then Liverpool, again, as was said earlier, Liverpool might have one big performance left in them. I'm sure everyone at Liverpool would absolutely love the fact if they could deny Manchester United winning a title in anything. Because whether it's football or tiddlywinks or, competitive tortoise racing, Liverpool and Manchester United, the hatred of each other is well known. So I think I'm going to go for the 7-point scenario. I think I'm going to go for that. I think you're going to win. I think you will beat Tottenham. I think you'll draw to Villa. I think you will lose the derby and draw with Liverpool.
God, Rob, you're going to get some.
Right.
Yeah, some-
You're such a hater, Rob.
I will put forward my various arguments for this as well, just to back it. Is that I think if you lose the FA Cup final, that mentally will have a big impact on you, because you saw it last year when you lost big games. Like, I think it was the West Ham game last year in the league that you drew late on, and after that you never really looked the same. To the point when at Chelsea, even when you went 2-1 up, I was still confident we were going to win it and still win the title. And I just think that, again, teams like Villa and stuff like that, they aren't as bad as they happen. People say not losing at home. You know, I've already seen you lose at home this season. So, and unbeaten records at home are hard to come by in the WSL. But it's it's one of those things. I genuinely do, and I know people hate me saying it, but I do think that ultimately this is where United's lack of experience could cost them, and lack of experience at big moments.
I can't see it personally. I agree with Lanza. We've only lost one game at home this season. That was obviously to yourselves. I can't see us losing to City. Well, I've put down a draw anyway for mine. So if you're putting a City win, I need to update it. Oh God, we could be falling out of the top 3 in your little thing with that kind of score.
I still think you will end up in the top 3, because again, I think there will be some strange results for City and also for Arsenal as well. Because I think that's the other thing, is that people haven't taken into account my various results for them as well.
Indeed. Well, we'll get to just a second. Phil, how many points are you giving United?
Well, before I do that, I'd just like to say what an honour it is to be part of Rob's very last appearance on the All for United WC. I mean, it's been fantastic altogether. I'm going to have to go back and say that I disagree with Rob for one simple reason, Connor, and that's because United of 2023 are not the Manchester United that lost against West Ham in 2022. I think that this is a team that has discovered itself and that has learned how to win and to keep winning. There were so many times I saw United last season when they didn't believe in themselves, even when they were in the lead against the bigger clubs, and it just didn't, like, the suit was too big for them, is the way I'd put it. And I think they've grown into it now. And that's why I think that they're going to take 10 points over the final 4 games. I think they will probably draw against the derby to City, and I think they will regret doing so, because I think that if they go and play in the way that they are capable of playing and attack them, I do think that that's a game that they could win at home. But I'd say they'll probably be pragmatic and think, okay, what we have, we hold. We start off at 0-0. We have a point. Let's just do that. But I do think that, I don't know, something about this team tells me that they are bigger and they're better, and that they believe in themselves more than what they did last year. And therefore, I think that 10 points is what they're going to get out of these last 4 games.
Was that 10? Sorry, was it?
10 points, yes. 1-0.
I've put 19 down. That's not possible. Hang on.
We're into Juventus territory here. There's all sorts of match fixing.
Anything's possible. Actually, what I'm looking for is a 15-point deduction from Chelsea for some financial mismanagement in the back room that we've never even heard about before.
Brown envelopes to Pernilla Harder will all of a sudden become a thing.
I gotta be
sorry. Just before we go any further, for the libel lawyers out there, Pernilla, I was joking, pet, joking.
Yeah. Satire, it's satire, all of it, please.
Yes, do not sue the channel, please. I do not want to be going to court. I'd say Lanzell, that is a confident bet. 100. I mean, please bet responsibly if you are watching and you do fancy a little bit of a bet. But jeez, that is quite something. Like Shane said, drinks at Lanzell, which we will obviously see you at Wembley. That is for sure on that one. So Shane's straight in there with a little comment. The reference to it, I'll be careful. Which, yeah. We'll reserve comment on that one.
Say to that is their guide dogs might.
Certainly.
And again, libel lawyers, I'm joking.
Over to City then. Chas, I'll throw it obviously back to yourself. You've said that United are going to beat City, so obviously that's one game off their list. So the other 3, what are you putting down for them? So they've obviously got
the other 3 games. Yeah, I think
Liverpool away and Everton.
Yeah, I think they'll pick up 9 points.
9.
Yeah. I don't think there's much more to say about that. Even though they did look disjointed at times, obviously at the in their game this weekend against West Ham, I really don't see them dropping points, apart from to United.
Meg, for yourself, obviously you've gone for a United win in that one as well. So the other 3 games, 9 points available. You've given them 9 as well.
9 points. I think as Chess said, like, they have been a bit disjointed, but I just can't see it. Like a lot of games, they've scored a lot of goals in some games this season. I just think they'll, quite easily sort of breeze those, 3 games, and then they may as well could maybe get a draw, against United, but I've got them losing. So yeah, 9 points.
Rob, you've obviously got City winning, so they can get a maximum of 12 in your little in your predict. How many are you giving them?
Well, I have them dropping points this weekend to Reading in some bizarre. I can see it being like one of those great like Woso meme moments, like like the handball goal a few years ago. Like, I can see something just absurd happening. Maybe like a goal direct from a long throw in or something like that. We haven't had that yet in the WSL, or like one of those.
Doesn't that go to a corner if you throw?
If
it doesn't touch anyone.
That relies on
but the refs won't be able to work that out anyway. So
yeah, exactly. We're relying on the or the ball being 5 yards out of play when Reading cross it in, and the lines people missing it because they're too busy, doing whatever, tying their shoelaces or whatever. I can see that happening. The Everton game is a weird one because they won't have Jess Park for it. But is that at Everton?
No, it's at City.
Okay, yeah. So if it was at Everton, I'd fancy them possibly for a result because I think it's their final home game of the season. I think they will probably pick up. I've got them probably taking, 9 points, and they'll lose to Reading in very bizarre circumstance.
Lose? I thought you were going to say draw.
No, I can see them. I can see it being one of those weird situations where Reading, a bit like last year against Chelsea, where Reading took an early lead, and the other team, just failed to do anything for the whole 90 minutes, and just failed to do absolutely anything.
So you're also giving them 9 then?
After the game.
You're very welcome to. Again, there's a reason I'm not top of the predictions league.
The thing is with that, Rob, that was a Deanna Rose masterclass, and bless her because she's been out with ligament issues.
It was a masterclass, but I can see it being an Emma Harries masterclass this weekend or whatever. Like, in all more serious sports, Reading are fighting down by the bottom of the league. They did have, the weekend's fixture where they obviously came back, although, results aren't really falling their way. They are seriously worried about relegation. And when teams are worried about relegation, they do weird weird things when teams are worried about relegation and are fighting for relegation.
I was going to say, somebody said that earlier in the comments, that the teams near the bottom might actually be harder than playing the Everton.
This is the thing, I think, this year. Like, previously in the past, you'd literally look at it and you'd say, well, the only game Chelsea are possibly going to drop points in is that game against Arsenal. Or the only game Manchester United are going to drop points in is that game against City. But there aren't as many freebie fixtures anymore in the WSL in general, and that's only a good thing.
No, I agree with that, to be fair. I don't agree with your prediction, but I mean, some of these tables are getting tight. Phil, how many points are you giving Man City? Obviously, you've put a draw in the derby, so they can pick up 10.
Exactly, and I'm only going to give them 8 points, Connor, because I'm expecting Liverpool to get a draw with them at home at Anfield. In Liverpool. I don't see Reading doing anything. I know Rob was saying there that weird things happen in this league, and we all know that that's possible this season. But didn't Reading throw away a 2-goal lead yesterday?
Exactly, weird things happen.
But that's the opposite sort of weird thing to what Reading actually need at the moment. And that's the thing. Like, if you get yourself in a position where, because there's only one team relegated from this league, from this league every season, it's just you can't do that, and you just can't do that this late in the season. And that says to me, as well as Manchester United aren't who they were last season; they're better. Reading aren't who they were last season. I think they're worse, and I do think that they're very much. You have Brighton have had a couple of shoddy performances. You have Leicester have sort of played up after such a disastrous start to the season. That these things can't happen. I just don't know. I just can't see where Reading are going to find the quality or the magic that they need to do something against a team that, after seeing what Manchester City did to West Ham last night, I kind of expect a repeat of that, But I do think, as I say, for some reason, and, I'm not at Rob's level just yet, but people won't like me on a Manchester United channel talking about how good Liverpool are or how impressive they are and the things that I think they're capable of doing. And I do think that there's a lot of girls at Liverpool now. You have the Irish continuing midget there who are playing for places in the World Cup. They're going to want to sign off well with a good defensive performance. They're going to want to say to Vera Pauw, bring us, select us, build your team around us when we get down there. So I do think that there's an awful lot to play for in that Liverpool team still. And they're also safe, pretty much. They can get out there and they can play. There's no shackles on them whatsoever. So Manchester City are still going to be battling there. And I do think that Liverpool can do things to them. So Liverpool drawing against Manchester City, and City, of course, drawing the derby then as well. 8 points, and they should be happy with that. And if I know anything in my predictions, that puts Manchester United above them. And therefore, I'm welcome back at this channel pretty much any time, I would have said Connor Roberts.
I'd agree with that one. But obviously, we'll see how the Arsenal predictions go in just a second. Speaking of Arsenal, I said to Meg, I'd pin this on the screen. I'm going to read it out just so she just so she gets to see it as well.
My dad's probably watching this and thought the exact same when he saw that comment.
But can I just say, it was tremendous again. Being a Southampton uni alumni, it was tremendous to see my uni team fighting on Friday. I really wouldn't like to see them get relegated. I know a lot of very good people down at the club, in all seriousness, and it would be a shame to see them go down. And also the fact that they are investing quite heavily on the women's side at this moment in time. It would genuinely be... There are sides from the Premier League I would much rather see go down for various reasons.
Chelsea.
Leeds being one of them.
Sorry.
I heard that.
It's too late, Rob. You're done. You're not coming back in the channel, mate. You can have as many goals and leaves as you like. He's not going to let you back on.
No, of course.
The
Probably
injuries at the women and the results at the men's, it's just like, overall, it's just a shambles.
I was going to say, it was Theo Walcott rolling back the years.
Yeah, bless him, and he didn't celebrate either. I did. Yeah, I was.
Honestly, it was a contender, I think, for most miserable goal celebration. It's as if you told him, that he was about to get punched in the face by Mike Tyson.
The thing is, he did an interview, I think it was after the game or before the game, and people were asking him, do you want to see Arsenal win the league? And he was like, yeah, of course I do. And then he bloody goes and scores against us.
Yeah, it was before before Southampton played City, and they were like, do you want to score? And he was like, yeah, because I want Arsenal to win the league. And it's like, yeah, fair enough, mate. But also, he's got to do his job. Sorry, I'll let you get on and say about your prediction.
No, 100%. Shane shouting out the. Oh my god, this slipped my mind now. It's the oh my god, it's the alternative commentary. That's it. The United page do. That's what that's from. Anyway, Chess, throw it back to you then. Arsenal's fixture. So I can't remember what you went for the Chelsea game. So you've obviously gone for a draw. So that's 4 other games. Now I'm thinking 12, 13. The max they can pick up. Are you giving them 13, or are you going to make them drop points somewhere else as well? They've got Everton away, Leicester at home, Brighton away, and Villa at home.
Villa at home. Was that the last game of the season? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's. No, it's far enough. If Villa was closer to the game next Monday, I would say then that would potentially be a bit of an issue, because Villa's their last game of the season. I don't think it kind of will be. I think realistically, I think they'll draw with Chelsea, and that's the only points I see them dropping.
Meg, is that the same for yourself?
Yeah, exactly the same. Obviously, I see us drawing with Chelsea, but can't see us dropping any other points. I mean, as much as Kirsty Hansen gave us a scare when she scored very early on in the reverse fixture, obviously we went on to breeze the game in the second half. So obviously we had a lot more players back then. But yeah, no, I can't see us dropping any points. I think we've got that mentality to just go on and try and finish the season on as much of a high as we can. So yeah, just the draw to Chelsea and then wins.
Rob, for yourself, you went for a draw as well. So again, 13 points on offer.
Yeah. Again, it's weird because in all those fixtures I look at, and I can make very strong arguments for why they should just pick up all these points. And yet at the same time, you can start to see narratives why they wouldn't. When is the Champions League final in relation? Is that after the WSL season ends, or is it? Okay, that's fine.
3rd or 4th of June, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say
it's the week after the end of the league.
Yeah, okay. Let's say so. There's a week break. So I was going to say if it's like a midweek situation, then I could see them, rotating players on the final day if they are on a Champions League final. Because again, it's a more important thing than the fish 3rd or 4th, or not, to be honest. What I will Again, someone pulled out Everton there. Everton's an interesting one because, again, it depends what Everton turns up. Like, by this point, they could be very much in the trademark situation of on the beach, or you could have people like, Beaver Jones, who caused real problems for United when she came on, Jess Park, who is a very good player and will cause real problems. Brighton's the one, actually, bizarrely, that stands out to me. Like, I think they've shown real improvement in recent weeks under Melissa Phillips. And it depends which Brighton turns up again. I mean, if you get the Brighton that played in the FA Cup semi-final, again, I feel they're the sort of side that Arsenal are going to hate to play because they're physical, they're combative, and I think that's the sort of thing that Arsenal won't necessarily want with all the injuries they've got at this moment in time. They won't necessarily want a real physical battle. They'll prefer a situation where I think it's keeping the ball on the deck. But yeah, I think I'd probably see them getting 13. I can't see, 13 or depending on whether they beat Chelsea or not, depends on what happens in the FA Cup final. I find it hard to see them really dropping points. I think they could draw one somewhere, but it's hard. Again, it depends. If they get more injuries again, then they could very easily, sort of drop points here or there. If they lose Leah Walty, then I would put money on them dropping points in every single game. But that's more just due to the fact that how good I think Leah Walty is as a player. I think 13 is probably fair.
Phil, are you going to make this a full, I don't even know how many I went, but a full house bunks you got? Yeah, no, I went 13 as well. So you're going to go with
you know me. I point blank refuse to go with the consensus. So I'm going to go with Aston Villa getting a draw in the last game. So that's going to give Arsenal 11 points out the last 15. Solely because I think that, for our own good, if Arsenal were to make it to the Champions League's final, for instance, you're going to have to wrap Katie McCabe in cotton wool and just leave her at home possibly for several weeks on end, because she'll just tackle something, a bin somewhere in Highbury or something, just because, she can't help herself. Much and all as I love Katie, she's just that kind of player who, and again, for Ireland's World Cup hopes such as they are, I think that that's a player that absolutely needs to be fit and to stay out of trouble. And I also think that, the reverse is true. If they don't make the Champions League final, I do think that, there's going to be a certain amount of switch off there when they realize that, okay, maybe we can't do this. So we'll cruise through to the end of the season. And if they do drop a couple of points against Aston Villa, and really this is very much coloured by the first half hour of this discussion where everybody was talking about Aston Villa as if they were Brazil. So I think I've been a little bit influenced by that, so I'm giving them a couple of points there as well. And Chelsea as well.
Sorry, someone just said Knobs, like last minute winner against Arsenal. The football gods are a cruel mistress. And it is the exact sort of, hashtag drama that they do like of Knobs on the last day of the season, last minute winner to deny Arsenal Champions League football is the sort of, it's the sort of theatre that I think we'd all enjoy. Probably not Meg. But
honestly, I don't think I could forgive her if she did that.
You'd have fans outside the stadium burning their J&H shirts, so people scratching tattoos off their arms. It'd be the worst thing in the world. No, it would actually, to be fair, that would actually be quite a full circle. Yeah, it would be quite poetic, especially bless her after the last few seasons she's had at Arsenal. If she then makes it into the World Cup squad because of it, but that's we love a good bit of narrative. We love it for the narrative, so that would do great for narrative. But
if
apart from that,
in the World Cup squad, then yeah, fine, do it.
I was going to say, Phil, sorry to break to you as well, but I've got you down as giving 13 if you're giving a draw on the last game of the season, because you said that Arsenal would beat Chelsea.
Sorry, that's correct. 13 points. Yeah, I'm getting old now. The old Alzheimer's is kicking in this hour of the evening. So 13.
Despite your best attempts to not go with the crowd, you unfortunately succumbed to go
with the crowd anyway. Yeah, that's look at. I talk a good game,
but in a different way because he's different, so it's fine.
Exactly. Slightly different consensus.
You can so tell there's no City fan on this panel because we have all gone for exactly the same. Well, no, apart from Chess, who's got United winning the league on goal difference. Everyone else, I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. This is going to look like, I'm sorry, there's a lot of colours and a lot of
for the accountants in the room, they're going to absolutely love
they're going to love this.
Go on.
So there we are. This is a whole mess. Ignore me. So obviously you can see for myself, I've got Chelsea on 56, United 54, and City and Arsenal both 51. For myself, Chess, you've got United, Chelsea 56. Arsenal just beating City. Like I said, none of us have got City. I kind of have it dependent on goal difference for mine. Rob, you've got, in fact, where's Meg? So you've got, Chelsea, United, Arsenal City. Rob, you've gone for the same. You've got United and Arsenal on the same, though. But obviously, United's goal difference at the moment. You'd like to hope that's United second, Arsenal third, City fourth, and Phil exactly the same. Chelsea, United, Arsenal, City.
So what am I getting from this is that I'm the only true Manchester United fan in this call, Connor. That was actually by accident. I would just like to premise this that I do actually think that that's the way that it's going to go. So yeah. Anyway, I try not to be too biased.
Before we started this, I actually did have us and City on the same points, and it would have been determined on goal difference. But then I did switch some things around, not because I wanted us to finish in top three, but
so that did play into your thinking.
Oh yeah. I originally thought that it was going to be a draw in the Manchester derby, but I thought I'll change my answer because I just adore Mark Skinner.
I mean, the big thing about the Manchester derby is will Manchester City be allowed a 1-game loan of Caroline Weir? Because if so, then the result in that has to change.
Actually, let's sit back and talk about narrative for a second there. If you're going to bring up Caroline Weir, her sending them out of the Champions League before the Champions League group stages with a chip, I thought was quite good and made the many years that she terrorized us in cold Manchester derbies throughout the years made it feel a little bit better, if I'm being completely honest. I was sat there with my partner who's a City fan, and I was like, taste of your own medicine, isn't it? How do you like that? How do you like them apples?
You're preaching to the choir, unfortunately, here, because I think Weir's a phenomenal. Someone said it the other day, and I think puts it really well. When you watch Real Madrid without Caroline Weir and with Caroline Weir, it's a bit like if you have a car and you just decide to take the engine out of it. Real Madrid without Caroline Weir do absolutely nothing on a football pitch. I remember it was the game, the home game in the Champions League against Chelsea, where Weir couldn't get into the game. Erin Cuthbert was just marked her out the game brilliantly. But Real Madrid did absolutely nothing for the whole game. Just offered absolutely nothing. And then in the away game, every single time they got the ball, it was just passed to Weir. And all Weir was doing was, right, can I have a shot from, 40, 30, 25 yards? And it is, it's one of those things where they are probably, Real Madrid are probably the biggest one team, one player team in Europe. The way they play without Weir.
No, yeah, I find it hard to disagree. I do apologize. I'm kind of just reading back up the comments while I was, as Shane said, Shane, you've seen the predictions league sheet and how messy that is. I mean, I might show everyone at the end of the season what me and Barry have been doing with this predictions league sheet because it is massive to try and get all those in. He's also a fan of you.
It's quite a masterpiece, to be fair.
It is. It certainly is. We're only 3 weeks away from the end of that as well, by the way. I don't actually know who's still top of this weekend. It's not me, definitely. But yeah, Shane's a fan of you, Chess in for sure.
Thanks,
not
mate.
A fan of you, Rob.
Cheers. I'll slip you the tenner later.
I think that was in response to your loaning Weir back to.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, the 1-game loan of Caroline Weir.
Indeed. So, but no, I'm going to get sacked from my own channel for not predicting United to win the league, but that's a whole other story. I really hope I'm wrong, but.
You're being unbiased, which is what we like.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be. What I will say is, whoever does end up winning the league this year, I think there can be no doubt that whoever does win it has deserved it on merit. It's a situation. It's not like looking at it and they're just winning it. They're winning it because they're the actual best team over the period, not just because everyone else has been, dreadful, which has been the case in the past. And also, I think it bodes well for the future because I only think the races are going to get more and more competitive. And I think, obviously, Aston Sellecow are going to get better and better every single year. You've got, other sides. Tottenham, if they don't go down and if Daniel Levy finally gives up his stupid idea of a relegation and invests in the team, they actually, I think will improve. You've got teams like Newcastle that are making their way up the pyramid and are investing heavily. Teams like Leicester that, although, I think if Leicester can stay up this year, if they can invest well in the summer, they can start to then, after a couple of years in the WSL, you can start to position yourself as, better than surviving. West Ham that are just, if you ask me, a mid-table WSL team, it'd be West Ham every single time. You can pretty much predict their season every year they'll finish 7th. And I think that's, ultimately, it's a really good thing because we're now talking at a point where we're not just looking at the situation. It's not just a case of, when do Chelsea and Arsenal play each other? Let's mark that on the calendar because that decides the title. Or when do Chelsea play Manchester City because that's all that really matters, and every other game is going to be 3 points.
No, 100% agree on that one. Just very quickly before we wrap up, I've got 2 kind of quick fiery questions for you, class. It's been very top 4 focused, but it's hard to forget. Obviously, there is a relegation battle going on as well at the bottom. So I'll come to each of you and ask you who you think is going to go down, because there's, I'd say 4 teams. I think it's fair to say I don't think West Ham and Liverpool are going to get dragged into that. So you've got Spurs on 13, played 18. Brighton there on 12. They've played a game less. Reading on 11, and they've also played 18. And Leicester have played a game less on 10. So there's 3 points separating the bottom 4. Chess, I'll start with yourself. She doesn't look very happy with that. She's like, "Oh,
sorry,
shit,
I was getting foot mob up to see if I could have a look to see what fixtures were left. I'm just gonna have to say it from my chest and what I remember now. I don't think it will be Brighton, because I think Melissa Phillips is great, and it's great to see her back in the WSL, and I think you're already seeing that change there in that squad. And I want to see her and that team be left in the WSL next season. Willie Kirk's Leicester.
They have got Chelsea and Arsenal, obviously, to play in their
Who
last
else have they got?
They've got Liverpool at home next. They've got West Ham at home and Brighton away on the last game of the season.
Okay. It's going to go down. It's going to go down to the last game of the season, and Reading are going to get relegated.
No, to be fair, I wouldn't mind that because I can't stand going to their ground, so I wouldn't be against that one. Meg, for yourself, who have you got going down?
As an Arsenal fan, I'd obviously love to say Tottenham, but I honestly don't know. Like, I love watching Leicester play. Like, who did I get? It was against Man City, I think, when they played at the King Power. I just think that, they gave them a really good game. They could have even potentially won the game. I just think, some of the players they've got, really talented. I think the way they play is, really, nice to watch. But, with them playing us, and Chelsea and, the other results, you could see them going either way. I think it'll be them going down.
Yeah, it's hard. I like Leicester. I've got a bit of a soft spot for them. Maybe it's just because they're I don't know. No, Shane. We've had some bad experiences going there. It's not. It's a nightmare to get to because it's just and they just send you to the top, and it's horrible. No, not again. Rob, who have you got going down?
Can I just say one thing? Like, I have to say that you say about Leicester could have won the game against City. Considering City went 5-0, I think that's the most ambitious reach I've heard in a long, long time.
Yeah, but it was a very close 5-0, Rob.
Ambitious that reaches. I had to check it myself. Again, I do think it will probably end up being Reading. Again, I think Brighton will cobble together enough points. I think Tottenham, Beth England will drag them up by the bootstraps. The other thing with Beth England, she's such a huge character inside the dressing room. Like, I imagine she was probably one of the people at halftime screaming at them at the weekend, we are in danger of going down here, sort the F out, or words to that effect in her lovely Barnsley accent. And ultimately, she is a goal scorer. She's the sort of player that in a tight game, I could easily see her nicking, 1 or 2 more this season and getting the points. Leicester, again, I have a soft spot for Leicester because A, I like the fact they are investing, but B, also I think they try and play the game. They play an attractive brand of football. So yeah, I think it will end up being Reading. I feel that they've probably got to the point where they've hit that point where they've not invested enough for whatever reason, and they've had key players leave. And you can do that for so long, but then when you lose a player like Deanna Rose for the whole season, who is so important to the system, and you lose other players that are important to the system, if you're at the top of the table, you can maybe live with it. But when you're at the bottom of the table, it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. I've just put in a little private chat that Reading have City, Villa, Spurs away, and Chelsea. So, Phil, hope that doesn't sway your decision. But who are you putting to go down?
I do think Reading are going to go down. I think of all the clubs in the Women's Super League who started this season, who played last season, Reading, for me, are the club who've stood still the most. Brighton are the ones who've moved the most because they've been yo-yoing around the place and sort of, we're brilliant one week and we're hopeless the next week and that kind of thing. But it seems to me that Reading really haven't kept up with the rest of the mid-table clubs in the Women's Super League. And I think they're going to suffer from that they're running out of time. And as Rob mentioned, Beth England is just such a huge signing for Tottenham Hotspur. I'd hope that Celine Bizet, who'd come from Paris Saint-Germain, she didn't get much of a chance there, but that she was going to do more. But she's a player that's still in development. She's not the finished product yet. I don't think Spurs are in any danger whatsoever. I think Leicester have shown the kind of fight in recent weeks that you really need to stay up, despite getting edged 5-0 by Manchester City in that game. It's one of those things that Reading haven't shown anything. It's very hard to look at Reading and say, okay, how do they stay up? I don't think anybody, even the club themselves, can answer where the goal's going to come from, where the clean sheet's going to come from. And you just can't see them playing against City, Villa, Spurs and Chelsea. It's going to be very, very difficult to get the points they need to stay up out of that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I've got Reading going down because I think Leicester will get a win somewhere in the next 5. And that puts Reading now, because I can't see Reading picking up any points anyway. And yeah, I hear what you're saying, Shane. I think that's definitely a factor. Playing, they potentially don't suit that bigger pitch. So potentially that is something as well. The last quickfire one before we wrap this up, then the Golden Boot race. Obviously, there's 2 in contention. I doubt Russo or Kerr is going to get near this unless Kerr scores 5 or 6 against some of these, I guess, easier teams in the home ties that they've got. But
how close is it at the minute?
So Shaw's on 17, Daly's on 15. Russo's on 9 and Kerr's on 8, so I'm not even going to ask.
Yeah, probably won't be Sam Kerr. Bless her. Also, probably not Russo. But
That's a shockingly low number for Sam Kerr. You expect her to score a goal every game, and it hasn't happened this year. But I suppose now that I'm already waffling, I think it's probably going to be Shaw. Shaw just looks like one of those players who will get you a goal every game. I think she's got 17 and 18 games or something this season. And even last night, she had a couple of chances and then she got a great one. She stuck away with her left foot, and she's just that kind of player. I mean, but having said that, Rachel Daly is playing for the women's soccer version of Brazil, so you can't rule that out. Right?
That's going to be the one thing everyone remembers from this.
Aston Brazil.
Rob, Shaw or...
Yeah, I mean, firstly on Sam Kerr, it's really nice this year that she's decided to give someone else a chance. I think, I understand she probably had too many golden boots on her shelf. She needs to put another shelf up. It's been quite funny, actually. There have been at least 4 occasions this season that she's had pretty much open goals to sort of shoot into. And every time she's tried to pass it, normally to either Wrighton or Lauren James, and give them a tap. And in several of Lauren James' goals this season, I can just remember Kerr doing a load of brilliant work and then passing it, and Lauren James putting it in so they can celebrate together, which has been nice. But I think it probably will end up being Bunny Shaw. Again, at the beginning of the season, I came on this channel and was very unpopularly told when I said at the beginning of the season that I still fancy City to finish second and Bunny Shaw to win the Golden Boot. I was talking nonsense. I don't always talk complete nonsense, just 90% of the time. I do think that Daly's had a really good season. I think that the fact Daly's done well hopefully will encourage more sides to actually invest in a goal scorer, because I think you're now seeing the benefit of, and you're seeing it at Tottenham as well, like they would have been dead and buried by now if they didn't have Beth England in the games that she's picked up points for them. But I think it will end up being Bunny Shaw. I think she might get around 20. I don't think she'll break the Miedemar-Kerr joint record, which I think is 23. And yeah, I think it will just end up being, I think Daly will probably end up around 17, 18. What I do like about Daly is the fact she has had a lot of games where she's not scored a lot of goals, but she's scored the decisive goal. And I think that's always a big, a big thing. That's the way a goal scorer, really gets their value. It's pointless scoring 4 or 5 in a fixture and then blanking for 3. It's better to score 1 in 3 1-0 wins.
No, I agree. I was going to name some players there, but I thought, no, I won't do that. I'll avoid that one. Meg, who are you going for out of those 2?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bunny Shaw as well. If my dad was on here, I don't know if he is, he'd be telling me to stay Daly because he has some, not an oh, there we go.
Right on cue.
Where's your Daly comment? But no, as much as I've really enjoyed seeing Daly, play that striker position in the WSL, I think a fan of every team has probably, really, really enjoyed seeing her play and sort of just be free in that position. But, when you've got the likes of Lauren Hemp and Chloe Kelly and, the people in midfield at City just pinging you balls over the top of defenses for you to, sort of head them in the back of the net, then, you're not going to miss very many chances. And, I think Bunny Shaw will get quite a few more up until the end of the season.
And Chess, for yourself, who are you going to go for out of those two?
Yeah, I think I am going to go for Bunny Shaw. And you know what? I am happy to say that it's Bunny Shaw because we saw her come into the league last season and not really kind of make the impact that people expected her to make. And it must be really hard, like confidence-wise as a striker, if you're going to do something like that. And like really your first season, everyone puts the kind of focus on you and you think that you're going to make like such a huge impact and you kind of aren't able to do so. And I felt like she kind of sat in the shadow of Ellen White in that Manchester City side, couldn't really do that much as an impact sub because the team really wasn't like playing around her and in the way that she kind of needed them to do. So it's so good, just I think for football narrative and for football in general, to see like a striker like that actually being able to show off when they can score so well. So yeah, I'm gonna say Shaw. Rachel Daly as well at Villa is epic, and I really like. And who knows, maybe if Alicia Lehman would have allowed her to take that penalty at the start of the season, we would be having a different conversation. But people have short memories, so they'll forget about that one. But no, it's good to see Shaw in contention for that position. I hope she gets it.
I was at that game, and that was just the first of many things that happened in that game.
Oh my God, I wonder. To be a fly on the wall of that dressing room, of those conversations that happened after that fixture, because they all seem to get on quite well now. So clearly it was water under the bridge. But that was, I dread to think what was said.
Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these conversations. Certainly, you see some of the ones on the men's side as well.
Props to however Carla Ward dealt with that.
100% to get away from that one. Right, I'll come to each of you then to kind of shout out what you want to shout out, because we always do this when we have other people on. So I'll go in reverse order again. Phil, I'll come to yourself first. What do you want to shout out while you're here? If people want to follow you or find you or anything else?
Do you know what?
You can blue tick now, though. It's
I think most people on the All for United channels follow me already, which is very generous of them. But the one thing, you can find me at Philip O'Connor on Twitter, right? But the one thing I would say is that Connor's doing a great job with this channel, especially on the women's side. So the favor you can do, Connor, is share this, right? If you're sitting there enjoying this evening, there's other Manchester United fans out there. Maybe they only watch the men's team, and they might go and see everything. Share this with them, because we've had great fun bringing you this show this evening, and I know how much Connor's work puts into it. So I don't want to shout out myself. I want to shout out Condog and get behind him, get behind the channel. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be invited on, especially when it's Rob's last show, and it's fantastic to be here. So thanks very much for having me.
I definitely didn't pay him to say that. Just before I get clicked, you're going to make me go red in a minute. But no, I appreciate that, Phil. But yeah, definitely make sure you go and check out Phil's Twitter as well. It's certainly entertaining, to say the least. So, especially now your blue tick's been taken away. You're tweeting Elon all the time now. So
fuck it
all. Rob, for yourself, obviously people should know who you are by now.
Yeah,
if they don't, but
yeah, I mean, you can follow me at RJP Journalism if you want to get my thoughts on various things. Usually 90% of it is just dry sarcasm. Don't expect any quality cutting edge insights. It's mainly just me moaning about things. What I will say is a more interesting follow is at FBall, which I now write the newsletters for and the blogs for. That's been very exciting. If you have a piece of news about your team, no matter what level you're at, no matter what stage you're at, I will include it in the newsletter in our Roundup of the World, which is why last week we went from talking about the top of the UWCL to talking about Stourbridge's promotion. So, if you do have anything you want to shout out, please let me know. I'm sure in the summer you'll see that I'll be quoting Philip when it comes to transfer news. So I'm sure look forward to that as well. That's a great source for me. And yeah, just anyone who has already signed up to the newsletter, thank you very much, because it really, has been the growth, especially in recent weeks, has been massive. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely go and make sure you subscribe to that if you haven't. I'm hoping everyone has in the comments. Shades. He is a whiner, very.
So just for viewers at home now who might be a little bit short-sighted like me, it's RJP, not RIP journalism. Whatever you thought about that beforehand.
Oh, don't worry. Get some more original material, Phil. I've heard that one. I've heard that one plenty of times.
I have to. We were talking about open goals there, Rob. I had to take it.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm about to say it's one of those ones. I commend you for that wit. That level of wit is the sort of thing you can only get from professional journalists.
Wait, you throw me off. Meg, shout out. Shout out.
Yeah, and so my Twitter's on the screen, Megan Garbutt 03. I'm, pretty much active on it all day, every day, talking about the men's and the women's, Arsenal, Grimsby Town, Lionesses, all that jazz. I graduate in a couple of months, so that's quite exciting and quite scary from uni. So, but I've been doing a lot of stuff for Dan Pentland at FAWSL Full-Time magazine, hopefully reporting on the Arsenal Wolfsburg game on the Emirates. So, if I'm reporting on that and we win that, then, that'll top a lot of things I've done. Also coming into my final few games with Wolves women, who I've been covering during my time at uni. Talked a lot about that with Connor, because obviously he's been following Stourbridge, and we've got a nice tasty County Cup final coming up between Wolves and Stourbridge. But no, as Phil said, massive shout out to Connor for, getting so many people across, all backgrounds on this channel. I think the first one I came on was before the Euros, talking about, just all things Euros. And I've made some great friends through this. And yeah, it's just a great platform to have a laugh and also have a big rant about many things.
No, I appreciate that as well. And certainly, let's say if anyone's in the Midlands area, Wolves versus Stourbridge, I think it's the 4th of May, I think it is. It's Tuesday. It's at the Molyneux as well. So
I think it's the
it's
9th.
a Tuesday.
It's Tuesday the 9th, I think.
The 9th, not the 4th. Yeah, I knew it was a Tuesday. But yeah, that's
I
at the
don't think
Molyneux.
I've heard anyone call it the Molyneux.
Pardon?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever call it the Molyneux.
That's what it's called, isn't it?
It's just Molyneux, isn't it? Yeah, not the Molyneux.
I call it the Molyneux, even though it is Molyneux. It sounds weird. Molyneux.
There you go. You've all said some great things about me in the channel, and then I go and blow it by saying the wrong stadium name.
Molyneux Gate has begun.
Speaking of great platforms, obviously chess, I'm sure you want to obviously shout out your own podcast and things like that, obviously, that you host, and you've done one today as well, actually.
Yeah. One's come out today. We spoke to Shannon O'Brien, who is a current Leicester player, having a chat to her earlier on today. And we had Ines, who is our Portuguese correspondent, who was on the call as well. So yeah, follow the Women's Football Podcast at TWFP1. Follow me on Twitter if you fancy it, at FV Warren. You might not agree with everything I say, and that's fine, because we're all different. And we should be happy about that, and that's okay. And yeah, kind of going off what everyone said before, if you're watching this, if you like the content, go and say hi and tell Connor how lovely he is and how wonderful he is the next time you see him at Lee Sports Village. Spend that £6 or £10 next season to bring a men's fan along down to Lee or to Old Trafford to watch the women play. And if you can't find one to do that, just buy him a pint or a hot dog at the middle of the game. But make sure to queue up quickly at Lee Sports Village, because they normally run out of condiments or buns by about halfway through half time. So yeah, thank you for having me as always. Never too serious on here, which I always really love. So yeah, and enjoy the rest of the season, whether we lose all the rest of the games and end up 7th or we win the league. It's always great supporting Manchester United.
See, I should just let you do the outros every time you're on. I don't need to say anything after that. Just let you go for it. But Shane is in the comments. We'll pass on your thoughts, I guess, to the staff at Lee about running out halfway through, well, before the game's even kicked off. So Shane, note that one down. And yeah, so there is a rumour that some people do say the LSV. I won't name them. But you already asked. Ian, if you're watching, sorry. It is just LSV. But there we are. Anyway, obviously, thanks for these guys for coming on. It's been a fantastic show, as always, as I thought it would be. As soon as I put this panel together, it was going to be a good one. Barry will be back, obviously, on Wednesday, previewing Aston Villa. And obviously, have some Villa fans to talk us through that. We'll talk about, obviously, Kirsty Hansen, Evie Rabjon as well, because that signing has obviously taking place as well. So there's plenty to talk about ahead of the Villa game. Obviously, check out all these guys' stuff they've shouted out. I'll put it in the description so it's easy for you, because why not? Obviously, make sure you're liking the video, subscribing, as Phil and the rest of the panel said, share it out. Why not? The community's growing. There's a lot of new faces in the chat every single time we go live, so it's fantastic. As Chess said, I know she was kind of half joking about it, but do come up to us if you see it at a game. We've had some really nice interactions in the last few weeks, being back at games and things like that. So obviously, please do come and say hello. It's usually a good interaction as well, and we can talk about the game in person as well.
Let's not forget you nearly tripping over and falling over as well.
Oh, don't!
Can I also invite people to vote on the poll for Molyneux Gate on my channel, on my timeline?
Oh, you've tweeted it out, haven't you? What if people? For people who don't know, I'll very quickly explain. So when I saw Meg at the what was it? It was the Wolves West Brom game, wasn't it? So yeah, may have nearly just knocked her over because I kicked a box that was in front and just fell into her.
Oh, and also sorry to announce this on the pod, but just before we wrap up, everyone go over. Ellen White has just she just announced that they've had a beautiful and healthy baby girl. So everyone go over and like it and comment and say congratulations, because that's really happy. That's just popped up 5 minutes ago on Twitter.
There we go. So a lot of shout outs at the end of this one, and some nice things as well. So yeah, make sure you're doing all of that, and we shall see you guys again on Wednesday night.